I don't usually share this, but maybe it's a warning for whoever is listening. It all happened 3 years ago on Christmas Eve. My family had always been very traditional. A full dinner, over-the-top decorations, and gift exchanges at midnight. But that year, something changed, and I never looked at Christmas the same way again. My mother had bought a new Christmas tree, a giant one, full of old ornaments she had picked up at a thrift store. Among them was a golden angel which, according to her, was the most special piece. It was strange. Despite its shine, it looked old, with eyes that seemed alive. I mentioned this, but she laughed and said I was just imagining things. On the night of the dinner, as I was helping organize everything, I noticed something. Every time I passed by the living room, that angel seemed to be in a different spot on the tree. I thought my mom was just adjusting the decorations. But around 10 p.m., she went into the kitchen and didn't come back. I felt a chill when I went to look for her. She was standing still, staring at the tree, her face pale and eyes wide open. "It blinked at me," she whispered. I laughed nervously and pulled her away. From that moment on, things only got worse. At 11 p.m., while we were chatting at the table, we heard footsteps in the living room. I said it must be the cat, but our cat was right next to me. I went to check and saw something that froze me in place. The angel was no longer on the tree. It was on the floor, standing upright, its eyes fixed on me. I returned to the table, trying to pretend nothing had happened. My mom, however, noticed my expression. When I told her, she wanted to leave, but my dad dismissed it as nonsense. "It's Christmas, and I won't let a silly superstition ruin it," he said. That's when the lights flickered. We were left in darkness for a few seconds, and I swear I heard muffled laughter coming from the living room. When the lights came back on, the plates on the table were empty. Food, wine glasses, everything was gone. In the center of the table stood the golden angel. From that moment, everything fell apart. My dad tried to throw it away, but he burned his hand when he touched the figure. My mom began praying, and I tried calling the police, but the phone wasn't working. Then midnight struck. The clock chimed 12 times, and with each chime, something worse happened. The tree toppled over, the windows shattered, and voices began whispering all around us. "He wants a feast," the voice said. My mom screamed when she saw something written on the wall in red letters. "You are the feast." After that, everything became a blur. The last thing I remember was seeing the golden angel grow larger, its form distorting, coming to life. Its eyes glowed with malice as it advanced toward us. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. They said the neighbors found me alone in the house, which was burned and destroyed. My family, well, they didn't find anything but ashes. Now, every Christmas Eve, I feel like I'm not alone. I always catch a glimpse of something golden out of the corner of my eye, and the smell of burning food fills the air. I know it's waiting, and I know that one day it will return. If I had known what was coming, I would never have accepted that gift. It was Christmas Eve, and the entire city was blanketed in snow. I had decided to spend the holiday alone, something my mother deeply disapproved of. She insisted that I come to her house, but I was exhausted from work and just wanted peace. Around 10 p.m., while watching a movie in the living room, I heard the doorbell ring. It was strange because the building had a doorman, and no one had buzzed to let me know someone was coming up. When I opened the door, there was no one there, just a small red box with a golden ribbon. I looked around, but the hallway was empty. I picked up the package and brought it inside. There was no note or sender, but my curiosity got the better of me. When I opened it, I found a wooden Santa Claus figurine, meticulously detailed. Its face was smiling, but the eyes, they seemed real, gleaming with an unsettling air. I placed the figurine on the coffee table and went back to watching the movie, trying to ignore the chill I felt when I glanced at the gift. At midnight, I heard something fall in the living room. The figurine was on the floor, even though I was sure I had left it securely on the table. When I went to pick it up, I noticed that its head had turned, looking directly at me. From then on, strange things started happening. The lights flickered, and I could hear faint laughter, almost like a whisper. I thought I was imagining things, but then I realized the figurine was no longer where I had placed it. I found it sitting on the couch, its face pointed toward the TV. My heart raced, but I tried to stay calm. I grabbed the figurine, stuffed it back in the box, and locked it in the cabinet. That should have solved the problem, right? Wrong. At 2 a.m., I woke up to a noise coming from the kitchen. My stomach churned when I saw the box open on the table. The figurine was there, but now its expression had changed. It was no longer smiling. Its mouth was slightly open, revealing tiny, sharp teeth. I tried to throw it away. I ran to the building's dumpster and left it there. But when I returned to my apartment, it was sitting in the middle of my bed. I spent the rest of the night wide awake, with all the lights on, clutching a kitchen knife. The figurine stayed still, but I could feel it watching me. At dawn, I decided I needed to get rid of it for good. I took the figurine, drove out to a forest outside the city, and buried it. For a few weeks, everything went back to normal. I thought I had put the nightmare behind me. But yesterday, as I was decorating the Christmas tree, I heard something fall to the floor. It was the same red box with the golden ribbon. And the figurine? It was back. But this time it wasn't alone. There were several of them, all smiling, all staring at me. And I know that this Christmas, they're waiting to take me. I will never forget the Christmas I spent trapped in that cabin. My plan was to spend the holiday in the mountains, far from the chaos of the city. I wanted peace, snow, and maybe a bit of isolation to clear my mind. I booked a small, cozy cabin equipped with a fireplace and all the essentials. The forecast warned of a snowstorm, but I thought I could handle it. After all, the cabin was sturdy and prepared for emergencies. What I didn't know was that the storm would bring something far worse than the cold. I arrived on the morning of the 24th. The place was beautiful, surrounded by pine trees and an absolute silence. Snow was already starting to fall as I unpacked my things and lit the fireplace. Everything seemed perfect until nightfall. Around 6 p.m., the wind began to howl as if it were trying to break through the windows. The trees swayed violently, and the electricity went out. I was left with only the light of the fireplace and a few candles I had found. The silence that had been comforting earlier became oppressive, broken only by the constant sound of the wind. That's when I heard the first noise. It sounded like scratching at the door. At first, I thought it was the wind or maybe an animal. But then I heard it again, louder this time, like nails scraping against the wood. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the door, but when I opened it, there was nothing there, just the snow swirling in blinding gusts. I quickly shut the door and convinced myself I was imagining things. But the noises continued. Scratches, faint taps, and something that sounded like footsteps in the snow around the cabin. I tried to ignore it until a loud noise made me jump. It came from the kitchen window. When I ran to check, the glass was fogged up, but there was something there. A mark, as if a hand had been pressed against the glass from the outside. Only the hand was unnaturally long, with thin, inhuman fingers. I started locking all the doors and windows, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave me. Around 11 p.m., I heard a voice. It was coming from outside, a whisper so faint it was almost drowned out by the wind. "Let me in." My heart nearly stopped. It was impossible for anyone to be out there in that storm. I tried to ignore it, but the voice grew more insistent, as if it were coming from multiple places at once. "Let me in. I'm cold." I grabbed a kitchen knife and stood in the center of the living room, trembling from both fear and the cold. The fireplace no longer seemed to warm the room. The suffocating sense that something was very close wouldn't leave me. At midnight, everything went silent. The wind stopped suddenly, and the cabin was plunged into an eerie stillness. That's when I heard a sound behind me. When I turned around, I saw something I will never forget. A tall, gaunt figure stood near the fireplace. Its skin was as white as the snow, and its sunken, black eyes glowed with a malevolence that froze me in place. "You should have opened the door," it said, its voice like the icy wind itself. The last thing I remember is the sound of glass shattering and the cold, an intense cold that felt like it was slicing through my skin. When I woke up, I was lying in the snow. I don't know how I survived, but I still feel like something is following me. And now, every time I see snow falling at Christmas, I hear that voice again, whispering in the distance, "Let me in."